Great. Look, thank you very much for joining us, everyone, today. I'm joined by Health Minister Meredith Hammat and Aged Care Minister Simone McGurk. And I would also, on behalf of the local member, Steve Price, welcome you to the electorate of Forestfield. Also joined by Graeme Pryor from Hall and Pryor, who's here to answer any questions that you might have. Before we get on with today's important announcement, I'd just like to say that to pass on my thoughts and regards, condolences and prayers to the Blue family today. We've lost 2 police officers in Victoria who were murdered in cold blood, and I think everyone is feeling the impact. But most of all, the family of Blue, the men and women who go out every day on our behalf to keep the community safe. Their sense of duty is extraordinary, and every day they put themselves in the line of danger and do such an important job for our community. I spoke with Commissioner Cole Blanche a short while ago just to express our thoughts and condolences, and we wish everyone the very best and hope that the police in Victoria are successful in apprehending the individual involved. But it's great to be here at the Wycombe Grove short stay aged care home here in High Wycombe. This is a fantastic facility, open next door, next door to Carringal Green Health and Aged Care Community just yesterday. So it's a brand new facility. In fact, they've got just their first resident, Margaret, who has taken up the opportunity under the Time to Think program to spend some time here. And we'd like to thank Margaret for having us in her home today. As demonstrated by my recent trip to Canberra, my government is committed to making sure that we work in partnership with the Commonwealth to ensure that all older Western Australians get the support they need. We are not the level of government responsible for aged care, but we acknowledge and recognise that we have a role to work in partnership with the Commonwealth to ensure that we provide appropriate care for older Western Australians. One of the many ways we are doing this is through our Time to Think program, which we launched in May last year. Under a $9.9 million funding package, it provides a program for aged care patients to be discharged from hospital, to find somewhere that they can come which is peaceful, looks after their needs for a period of time, so that they can think about what their next steps are. They can weigh up their options, speak to their family and friends, make informed decisions about their longer term care, and leave the hospital sooner. And as you can see, it's an important program, and I'm so pleased to announce that we have reached an equally important milestone, our 100th patient through our Time to Think beds. This represents a saving of, and thanks to this new Time to Think bed facility that we have here, we've got 11 new beds and grows our total number of beds to 53. And since its launch in May just this year, the program has freed up more than 1,100 hospital bed days. So it's an important part of acknowledging that we need to get people out of hospital into appropriate care as soon as we can, and continue to make sure that we provide the wraparound services for them so that they can then go on and understand what their next steps are going to be. It's not only helped improve the outcomes for these particular patients, but it's also takes pressure off the hospital system. The Time to Think program is just one of the many ways that we are looking to work to diversify the way we provide health care. Our priority is to make sure that people have access to appropriate care, whether that's in at their local GP, through the work that we're doing with the Commonwealth Government on urgent care clinics, whether it's in alternative care settings, whether it's at their local ED, whether it's in a hospital, but more importantly, whether it's out there in the community, where they can get access to care, the care that they need when they need it. I now hand you over to Health Minister Meredith Hammat.
Thank you, Premier. Thanks to everyone for being here today. As you've heard from the Premier, the Time to Think program is making a real difference to how older West Australians can access the healthcare that they need, ensuring that they've got access to the right care in the right place and at the right time. We know that for many older West Australians who are in our hospital system, many of them are cleared to be discharged from hospital but are not able to be because there's not an appropriate place for them to be discharged to get the care that they need. And for those older West Australians, being in hospital is not the best place for them, and it's also not the best outcome for our healthcare system as well. And as you've heard from the Premier, the Time to Think program's already created capacity for 1,100 hospital bed days by being able to transfer people from hospital into a more appropriate home-like care setting, freeing up hospital beds, but also making sure that those older West Australians have got the time that they need to think about what their next steps will be. This is a really important program, part of a suite of initiatives that are helping us to manage demand in our hospitals, but also part of a suite of initiatives that we're focused on as a government to make sure people do get access to care at the right place and in the right time. I'll now hand over to Minister McGurk to make a few comments about the program specifically.
Thanks, Meredith. And look, after I speak, I'll ask Graeme Pryor to say a few words. Graeme from Hall and Pryor, a very significant aged care provider in our community, and this is a Hall and Pryor facility which we're very grateful for. And I'm really pleased to be here in High Wycombe to acknowledge the 100th patient that we have taken in as part of our Time to Think program. So as you've heard from the Premier and the Health Minister, aged care, the regulation and funding of aged care is the federal government's responsibility, but we have real pressures on our system. And as a state, we're very firmly of the view that whether it comes to home care packages or residential care, we don't have our proportionate share of that here in Western Australia. And so that's putting pressure on older people, their families, and our hospital system. So when people like Margaret, who we just met, fell over in her home, hurt her hip, and needed to spend some time in hospital, she's not able to go home unless she has proper home care arrangements in place or is able to get a residential care bed. The state has stepped in with a range of different programs to make sure that we can give those older West Australians options, because otherwise they're going to stay in our hospitals. That's not good for them. It's not the right level of care for them. They can often lose condition and it can be stressful for them, and it's not good for our health system because we need those hospital beds for people who need that level of hospital care. So people like Margaret can exit through one of our programs, Time to Think. And as I've heard described, this is a kind program. It gives people like Margaret and their families time to work through what the options might be for the next stage in her life. And that might be to get a home care package so she can stay in a home with the right level of home care packages provided by the federal government, support programs, or to get a residential care bed. What we know is that because the state government has stepped in with Time to Think program, respite care, and also other transitional care programs, we've saved tens of thousands of hospital bed days through those programs, and that is significant. We know that our hospitals are under pressure. We need those beds for people that need that level of care. The other thing that's significant today, the 100th patient under our Time to Think program, but also we're able to announce that we're able to put online another 11 beds under the Time to Think program. And you're actually seeing this facility here, which has been repurposed by Hall and Pryor to make sure it is fit for purpose for people who need that level of care and have got the trained staff as well to look after them. So we're grateful for our aged care providers like Hall and Pryor and a number of other providers around our state. We're grateful to our aged care workers who apply skill and care, dedication every day. We're very grateful to them. We're also grateful to the federal government who is listening to our very fervent calls that we need more support here in Western Australia. We need it for home care packages. There are long wait lists. There's about 8,000 West Australians now who have been assessed but are not able to get the right level of home care packages. That's what most people want. They want to be able to stay in their home, but they need support. They need various levels of support, whether that's low levels of support to help them do a bit of shopping, a bit of cleaning and a bit of cooking, or high levels of support to help them shower, make sure they're taking their medications. Without that level of support, people are at risk of their health deteriorating, and they either need to go into residential care sooner than they would have otherwise. Not good for them, not good for our system, or they end up in hospital, which is obviously not a great outcome for them either. So we're grateful to the federal government for hearing our calls, that we really do want them to step in and provide more support for older West Australians. I'll hand over to Graeme Pryor now, and then I'll take questions on this specific program. Thanks, Graeme.
Thank you, Minister. Premier, thank you for coming today, and all ministers here today, and Member Price, it's wonderful to see you. This is a really beautiful program. I've been in aged care for 30 years, and we take 80 residents a month off the state government hospitals, and this type of think program is as good as it gets. It's very kind, it's very generous, it's very well resourced, and the state government deserves full credit for putting this whole program in place across Western Australia. So we take 25 residents, clients every month into the program in 4 of our homes, and it is, like I said before, very soft, very resourced, and run by beautiful staff and nurses here in Western Australia. But much more has to be done in this state of Western Australia. We only have 42 home care packages per 1,000 older people in this state. In Victoria, they have 63. Now, do the maths yourself. We are under-resourced, we're undercapitalised, we're underfunded in this state. And Premier Cook did take to the electorate in Western Australia at his last election, and he promised to fund 500 new concessional beds and put $100 million in as a down payment for that. And my advice to the ministers and Premier Cook, sorry, but you need to do that every year for the next 10 years.
Great.
Sir. And aged care, time has come for aged care to receive its fair share of funding and capital licensing and beds in Western Australia. We've missed out for as far back as I can recall, 35 years in fact. The time has come, it really has come. We're the lowest funded for residential places in the country, we're the lowest allocated in the country for home care places. And West Australians are ageing as fast as other people. The difference in Western Australia, I'll be very quick here, is that we make do ourselves. We're so far from Canberra, we make do as a community. But the tide has turned against us now. The sector is working very hard, it's under extreme pressure, and we do need more funding. The last Premier of Western Australia, Mr. Court, in 1996, closed the chequebook for aged care, that far ago. So this Premier deserves full marks for that, but a lot more has to be done. Thank you, Minister.
Graeme, can I just ask,
yes.
in terms of the financials, the folks that come here, like Margaret,
Yes.
What do they contribute anything? Is there a cost to them?
The cost to them effectively is part of their pension. So they're in the program, and if you are on a Commonwealth support pension program, it's almost totally free. But you do give up part of your pension to pay for that.
Is that a percentage depending on your means?
It's about 87%.
87
across all of Australia.
Graeme, you just kind of put the onus on the Premier a bit to
Yes.
increase that $100 million
Yes.
loan facility to an annual.
If he would consider that.
But do you accept, I mean, there's been a lot of back and forth in recent weeks about this being federal government responsibility. Do you accept that it's the federal government that's dropped the ball here and forced the state to
No.
step in? Or who's responsible?
The honest truth here, Mr Albanese's Prime Minister came into office and said, I'm going to fix aged care. And he absolutely fixed aged care. But more has to be done. A lot more has to be done
By
now.
both?
By both, but predominantly the federal government. We can't expect the West Australian governments with limited access to taxation revenues to fix the issue, but they can provide capital.
But these 11 beds,
Yes.
you know, how long did it take to retrofit this facility? You know, if funding was not an issue, all the funding in the world was provided by state and federal governments, how long would it take to create enough time to think beds to get those 300 patients out of hospitals?
Yep, okay. Well, on this facility here, we have 2 11s. There's actually 22 beds in total. The total cost for us to refurbish this is about $4 million. The state government so far have allocated and given us $500,000, and we're looking to recover a bit more out of the federal government. But the thing in aged care is if you ask for everything, you won't get anything.
But you can't click your beds
No, you
and
can't.
create 300 more aged care
Correct.
beds, right? So how long does it take?
Well, to refurb this place, it's taken us from acquisition to get approvals in place from local council and to do the work today is about 12 months. To do a new facility, that one there in fact, took 8 years. It's a long, long time.
Given the government's position, though, is there 8,000 packages underfunded?
Yes.
You know, doesn't that put more onus on the federal government,
Yes.
given that they're responsible for aged care?
Yes, it does. They run the program. The federal government, between themselves and the states and territories, have the primary and almost exclusive right and obligation to care for older Australians. But, you know, they're a long way from Perth. That's the reality. They're closer to Victoria, they're closer to New South Wales. So, talking to some journalists last night, the parliamentarians in those big states spend half the time chasing care, where our parliamentarians here do other things for the federal government. So it's up to the federal government and the federal parliamentarians to do a lot more for the state. The Premier here and the two ministers, we have two ministers, it's amazing. We need more, there's no question about that, but they can only do so much.
Does it need to be the WA federal MPs
Correct.
in the Prime Minister's ear more?
Correct? That's exactly right. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Graeme.
I'll just take questions about this particular program if there's any.
The Time to Think beds are jointly funded. The federal government chips in some. What's the split?
They do. We do get some for all of our Time to Think and transitional care. We do get some federal funding for all of those programs, but it is our initiative. And in fact, a number of other states are looking at these sort of initiatives. Because, as Graeme said, it's a kind program. It gives room for families to think about what the options might be, and also because there's wait lists to put other plans in place. I should say too that I just wanted to comment on the sort of demands that are in our system for medium and long-term residential care. So we've heard that that there are wait lists for residential care as well as home care packages. So it's estimated that by 2029, 2030, we will need in Western Australia about 2,800 more beds than we've got now. So that's about 28 new large home care facilities. In 2023-24, there were 9 new facilities built in Australia. So that starts to give you some perspective on the sort of pressures on us to start to think about what the time frame looks like for residential care beds, as Graeme Pryor's only too well aware. And while this is a funding and regulatory responsibility of the federal government, the state government is stepping in to engage with the aged care providers to make sure, first of all, that we roll out our loan facility that you've heard, $100 million in a loan facility, but to also do what else we can do to look at land that might be available, ease sort of any of the planning and approvals processes that we can free up. So really look at whether we can bring online underutilised facilities or repurposed facilities, as this one has done very successfully. So we're partnering with the aged care providers, stepping in, because we know there's a need for older West Australians like Margaret to have someone have their back and to look after them at a time which is quite stressful for any family.
Given all that then, and given the size of the shortfall, the urgency of it, I mean, you thanked the federal government for listening to you yesterday. Do they need to do more than listen? How soon do you expect some concrete measures?
Well, we're very clear in our asks of the federal government, but also respectful that this is a dialogue. We want to do this in partnership with them. And as you heard from Graeme Pryor, the federal government has amended the Federal Aged Care Act. That'll take effect from the 1st of November. And speaking to the Health Minister, Mark Butler, who was intimately involved in that legislation, he said that there's a lot of design in that legislation that was really as a result of listening to aged care providers and the community about what's needed for the 21st, as we move through the 21st century in our aged care system. So we appreciate all of that, but it is our job to go and advocate for Western Australia and ask the federal government to listen to our call for more home care packages, particularly across levels, So the level 4 is the highest need across levels, so that people can get the right support and stay at home, which is what everyone wants.
It's clear they might be listening, but it's very clear that they're not doing.
At this stage, we want to continue the discussions with the federal government. We've had one meeting with the Health Minister and the Aged Care Minister, and then Minister Hammat and I were able to meet with Sam Ray, the Aged Care Minister, again in the afternoon to go through a bit more of the detail and make sure we're talking about the same figures and data sets and the like, and just to talk about some of the specifics of our programs that we think are working very well. Programs like Time to Think and the transitional care arrangements to give families and particularly individuals, older individuals, time to take the time, a care facility that gives them the room to take the time to think about their next steps.
Was he open to your idea of a package of grants for WA to fast-track capital works?
We did put that argument to both Minister Butler and Minister Ray. I don't think it's useful to go through the details of discussions. They did undertake to continue to talk to us, and we appreciate that. And Minister Ray agreed to come to Western Australia so he could meet with some of the providers and start to look at some of these issues in a bit more detail. We did, I think it would be fair to say that we did, I believe, get a fair hearing, and the discussions will continue. Now, that's not to kick the issue down the road. It is to say that we don't get everything that we want in one meeting, but we are determined to get a good outcome for older West Australians and their families.
While discussions continue, you said you're looking at what more you can do, perhaps looking at land or other facilities that you could upgrade like this. It's only about 4 years to those 2030 stats that you were talking about. How quickly will you start looking at acquiring that kind of land?
We're already in the process as a state government of working with aged care providers and their advocates, so they have peak bodies and the like, and people that represent older West Australians as well, to look at what more the state government can do, particularly when it comes to any policy design or, as I talked about, whether it's land or underutilised facilities. We have our loan facility, which we're expecting will come online early next year. So we're hoping the plan is for tenders to be awarded early in 2026, and already those aged care providers are looking at what that means for their own capital investment. As part of our $140 million commitment in the election towards a contribution towards aged care and better care for older West Australians, that also includes some contribution to the Sister Kate's facility, which Hall and Pryor will be constructing. And what's important about that facility is that it's culturally appropriate, in this case for Aboriginal West Australians. And I really want to acknowledge the work that Hall and Pryor does for some of the more vulnerable West Australians who have been previously homeless, Aboriginal West Australians who really need a bit of extra care and thought put into their care packages, because their life up until receiving aged care has not been easy, and Hall and Pryor does that well. Thank you.
We've got a minute of time, so a few questions for the Minister and then...
Any question?
Just, do you have any update on the elective surgery situation? Is everything back to normal?
Yeah, so what we're seeing is pressure easing throughout the system in terms of the demands on our emergency departments. The HSPs are working quite closely with the Department of Health to make sure that we are managing that demand in our system. There's only small numbers of elective surgeries that are being postponed, and we'll keep a close eye on that. We expect the system to really return to normal.
So some are still being postponed?
Very small numbers have been postponed, and that's just part of managing the demand on our system as we go through this very busy winter peak period. They're monitoring it very closely. Obviously, we don't want to impact elective surgeries, but we do need to make sure that those patients with the most urgent needs are attended to first in the system, and that's what we're doing.
Do you have an update on whether the work at the ageing hospitals is happening now? The Premier said yesterday that Minister Carey is also looking at this, but Sir Charles Gardner had leaks all last week in some of their major hallways because of the rain. Are they being looked at to fix now?
Yeah, so look, obviously last week we announced the $50 million maintenance fund. Maintenance is ongoing in our hospitals all the time. It's really important that we have our hospitals maintained so that we've got as many beds open as possible, and particularly as we work our way through this winter period. So again, that's something that's just ongoing for HSPs to make sure that we are doing maintenance as and when it's required and programming the bigger works that we need to do as well.
6 or 7 ceiling links though and about 50 metres of hallway. It is a danger, and not all of them are being plugged by buckets. Like, is it a priority to kind of get these stepped up, or can you work with the hospitals to get these more minor fixed?
Yeah, of course. Like, it is important that we maintain our hospitals. We've seen some very wet weather over the last few days. So Minister Carey will be working with the HSPs to make sure that those, all of the maintenance needs that we have are being addressed as quickly as we can to make sure our hospitals are operating at its most capacity.
Have you got an updated number of people who need aged care but are in hospitals and take up beds?
We can get the number for you. We saw last week very high levels. As many as 326 older West Australians in hospitals last week who were fit for discharge but had nowhere to go. I'm happy to get the figures for you to reflect what it is this week.
Minister, sorry, just one question about funding at the state government level. Do you think that some of the funding for the Burswood racetrack could be possibly redistributed for aged care and the healthcare?
So we've made really significant investments into health. Over $14 billion has gone into additional funding in our health system. Significant funding for aged care, also for hospital operations in the last budget, as well as our election commitments. So we are investing heavily in health. We'll obviously continue to look at what more we can do. I've always said that as Health Minister, we'll be looking at what more that we can do, and that is my priority.
So, sorry, just touching on that quickly, do you think maybe then taking a bit of that over $200 million and sort of moving, hypothetically, some of it into aged care would be an ideal solution?
Well, we've made significant investments into aged care as well as other parts of our hospital system. Projects like the entertainment precinct are part of our government's commitment to delivering jobs. The Premier's been very clear that our government's committed to jobs, to health and to housing, and so it is about making sure that we're making investments to deliver on all of those priorities. Obviously, as Health Minister, I'm concerned to make sure that we're doing everything we can in the health system to make sure that we're delivering access to care that people need at the right time and in the right place. Some of that's innovative programs like the Time to Think program that we're talking about today. It's also addressing a whole range of other initiatives across the system to build that access. Thanks.
I think it's about 300.
I mean, this is important, but it's a drop in the ocean in terms of what's needed to address that need.
Well, we think it's important that you always celebrate the milestones and the good opportunities and the opportunities to see good work getting done, and the work that Hall and Pryor are doing here is incredibly important. Our program has been in place since May, and I'm really pleased to see that the number of people have already benefited from it. It's an indication of the way we have to diversify the way we deliver healthcare to make sure that people have access to the appropriate care for them, for their condition.
How do you classify that 300 today? People who shouldn't be in hospital or are judged not to.
Yeah,
they've got nowhere else to go.
Yeah, that's right. So they're people who are considered to be ready for discharge if they could be discharged into an appropriate care setting. Obviously, if they need to be looked after, hospital's the best place for them to be. It may not be the best care environment for them. Hospitals are loud, noisy places. They're quite distressing for some older people, and so being able to come here is just as an opportunity to really just take stock of where you're at, what the options for the future are, and to be looked after is a really good and important program.
Graeme suggested you need to do more to the tune of about $100 million a year.
I've never come across an opportunity where Graeme hasn't missed the opportunity to remind me about how we need to continue to support his great industry, and we're doing everything we can. Really pleased to hear his comments this morning about this being a kind service, the sort of service which we should be looking to fund, and I always take his advice on board.
$100 million a year?
Well, let us get the first tranche of that $100 million package going. It's a really important way that we can support the aged care sector through that loan facility to make sure that we can commercialise their opportunities much more effectively, and as a result of that, grow the number of concessional aged care beds available to the community.
You also met Murray Watt yesterday.
Yes.
Did you seek And did you get a commitment for him to show you and or industry the draft legislation before it's introduced into Parliament on the EPA?
Well, look, we certainly talked about the importance of national law, environmental law reform, and the fact that it is welcomed by all sectors of the community. We also talked about the fact that this comes from the Samuels Review, which took place in 2020. So the time has come to get on with the approach. I think there's a great deal of goodwill out there for Minister Watt and the work that he's doing, both with environmental stakeholders but also industry groups, agreeing on the principles. Now, we want to get this legislation in as soon as possible, so it may not be that people see the whole bill, but they will be able to see aspects of it to make sure that they can be assured that it's meeting both environmental and industry needs.
Is your understanding that states will be accredited for the assessments, but then ministerial approval will still be required at both state and federal levels?
That's a good way to characterise it, yes.
And are you satisfied with that?
Yeah, no, look, that's what we've always called for. We think it's important that the Environment Minister does have the final say, and we think it's important that we strip out duplications of processes and approvals and regulation by relying upon the great ecosystem of the environmental protection agencies in each of the states. Now, obviously, the Commonwealth would want us to see a particular standard or a particular approach as part of that accreditation process. So it's a good opportunity to make sure that nationally we have strong environmental protection.
You spoke to the Police Commissioner this morning.
Yeah.
Have you been briefed lately on the presence of sovereign citizens in WA? How do you characterise the threat here of something like we've seen in Victoria?
As I said, I spoke to the Police Commissioner this morning, and he said that we are looking at what's happening in Victoria, lending any support we can to the Victorian Police, but also, I think we need to take stock that these people, these sovereign citizens, are a danger to our community, and they're present in every community. They not only disagree with laws, they disagree with the society to which they belong. They reject the very idea that as a member of this community that they have their laws and obligations that they should observe. And that's a rejection of all of us. They are simply saying, we don't recognise the community in which we live, we don't recognise others, and the importance of looking after each other as part of this community. So they're a danger. And in this particular instance, you saw these police murdered in cold blood. They were ambushed. This is a nasty hate crime. And so it's important that the police understand all the circumstances here and continue to do the great work they do, particularly through the Hate Crime Squad, which is recently established by the police, to continue to make sure that we eliminate these hateful, violent crimes in our community.
ABC Four Corners highlighted quite a sizable number of subsets in WA.
Yes.
Are you confident that the police are across all of that and they know who the dangerous ones are, if there are dangerous ones there?
Yeah, we've got significant intel in terms of the individuals involved and significant monitoring of activities by groups. And the Police Commissioner expressed to me this morning confidence that in Western Australia we have the right sort of programs and the right framework to make sure that we can monitor and get on top of any unlawful behaviour.
Is there a heightened risk?
Sorry,
Is there a heightened risk in WA at the moment, just as the new gun laws are enforced?
Oh, look, I think, let's be clear. Our gun laws are about keeping people safe. It's about making sure that we take unnecessary levels of firearms out of our community and make sure they don't get into the wrong hands. And so they're an important part of community safety. King.
There are 3 local governments that are in strife at the moment. Is that an indication of problems in the sector, growing problems in the sector, or greater enforcement by the government?
Oh, look, it's probably a bit of both, to be frank. The government, under the reform package that we brought in, has better oversight of the local government authorities and their activities. And particularly through the inspector, we now have a more proactive opportunity to make sure that local government authorities that are getting themselves into strife can be supported earlier in that process and make sure that they could correct any behaviour or slide into financial difficulties. The situation out at in Coolgardie, that didn't happen overnight. They didn't happen overnight. They've found themselves in this situation over a period of time. And it's important that we can now have the resources and the authority under these new laws to ensure that we can intervene much sooner.
Last one, sorry, Premier. Just, there was a Donga
Yeah, I'll
fire
come back
in
to it.
Craigie this morning.
Oh, what, sorry?
A Donga fire in Craigie. A mother and a daughter taken to hospital. They were living in the backyard of someone else's home. We believe it could be housing crisis related. Is your government doing enough to get people into homes of their own?
Well, as you know, we're doing more than that ever before in relation to meeting the challenges of housing in Western Australia. The best way we can do that is through housing supply. And you've seen Minister Carey and myself making announcement after announcement, and you're now starting to see green shoots of success when you look at the rental vacancy rate, which is creeping up into the Goldilocks zone, and that is that zone where people consider the market in balance. So but we need to continue. Western Australia is the strongest economy in the country, the fastest growing economy in the country, and the fastest growing community. So we need to continue to make sure we create more housing supply so we can create opportunities for people to get the roof over their heads.
Is the 5% deposit going to make that harder?
No, the 5% is in the federal government. Well, the federal government scheme is actually a complementary or copycat program to Keystart. People have looked at the work that happens in Keystart over many years in other states and thought that's a really good idea. That is allowing people to have a smaller level of equity before they then get into home ownership. The federal scheme now allows us to use our Keystart loan book to do more creative and interesting packages so we can do further measures to get people into a home. Jeff.
There were, the Minister for Local Government got bombarded with emails yesterday. I know that because I was copied into them.
How's your inbox?
Well, asking her to reduce the quorum for Port Hedland and let the council go into caretaker mode and go to the elections in October. The question is, though, would you like to see compulsory elections in local government now so that the same few people don't roll up at election day and vote for the same people that that can bring them back into office?
Well, I think compulsory voting in local government elections is a conversation that the community needs to have. I think we've seen over a period of time, particularly with the impact of social media, the vulnerability of a lot of the governance arrangements for local government authorities, and that's made them more fragile in terms of the work that they do. So certainly having a plebiscite of a larger group of people, more reflective of the community at large, means that you would get, I think, stronger outcomes in terms of governance of local government authorities. We're not making that decision, but it's certainly an important conversation for the community to have.
Just one more, Kate, can
Yep,
tell me
sure.
off afterwards.
Yep.
The figures being put to budget estimates this morning show
Yep.
that the cost of running your office has increased by more than a third since 2021. How do you justify that?
Oh, well, look, our economy and our community is growing and government needs to grow with it. In addition to the fact that we've seen an increase in the resources available to my ministerial officers, we've increased the resources to opposition and other political parliamentary officers as well. We recognise that if the Western Australian community is going to be represented well and effectively by both the government and the opposition, you have to have the resources to make that happen. Thanks very much, everyone.